Guys, I'm going to get started. Thank you so much for being here today. I was kind of lazy and didn't even change the $1 Million Meeting from the bottom, but I just wanted to show you this is like what I presented there. And this is actually like the first time that I've, well, this is now the second time that I've showed anyone, kind of how our team works. This is a lot of the team training, the behind the scenes training, a lot of the framework that we use for my own team and acquisitions. And we're a pretty small team. It's only myself, two other acquisition guys, and then a guy in Dispo, and then we have some VAs behind us. So let me get going here. So we got a bunch of new people in the group. I don't know how many people actually know me. I know there's a lot of people here on the call from Maryland in our home market. But this is me and my wife and our kids, and she's my partner. I left my job like 2.5 years ago. This time last year, I was doing virtually no deals. I was getting my butt kicked, and I was almost going out of business. And now we're doing somewhere between 8 and 12 deals a month. Everything is basically virtual in our own city and state. Just sold a house today, and one of my guys in my office asked me, he was like, "Oh, is that one of the brick interior row homes?" And I'm like, to be honest, dude, I never even saw one picture of it. I don't know. So anyway, doing everything virtual here, which is a lot of fun. And I'll show you guys some of the framework of, basically how we work. And my goal here is to make it replicatable in your own business here. So you guys can kind of take the same framework and at least apply it to the leads you already got. There's really no new technology needed, nothing like that. So, and if you guys don't know, John Martinez, I highly, highly, highly recommend you check out his sales training. John is actually my sales mentor. I got to hang out with him for a few days last week. And man, he just has a really interesting way of distilling things down and giving you a new perspective on sales. So if you haven't checked him out, definitely check him out. He's got a boot camp coming up. All right. So if you, this is a common thing that I used to think. Have you ever wondered where are all of these motivated sellers anyway? You got all these leads coming in, and then everyone you talk to, they're like, oh, I don't know, I want retail price, or I want higher than retail price. And for me, I used to hear that a lot. Everyone would just say, I want retail price. And that was actually at the tail end of when I was, underwriting the deal. When I used to go out to properties myself, I used to always think I wasted another half day of going on an appointment where the seller just had no motivation and I had no clue about it even before I went out. I would just go out because they said they were thinking about selling, and I would check out the house, and then bam, they were like, well, I don't really want to sell that bad. Your price sucks. I used to think, I don't even know how to ask them how to find out, how motivated are you? So what am I supposed to ask? How motivated are you to sell it? Or I used to even be afraid, to ask, what am I supposed to ask? How much do you want for the property? How do you find these things out, right? It's kind of a mystery if you don't know the wording, if you don't know some of the psychology behind it. So this is a little bit of what I'm going to speak to you guys about today. And like I said at the beginning, our business just really struggled and kind of stagnated until I made one big discovery. And that was basically that all leads are not created equal. And if you spend too much time selling each one of them, you're going to work on really slim profits. You're going to work on really slim margins. And truthfully, you'll probably get burned out before you end up doing too many deals. So this is the turning point of our business, I'll say, is when I realized that all the leads were not created equal. All the leads coming in are definitely not equal. And so after I got my start with just cold calling when I was in my W-2 job, I was calling 4 to 6 p.m. every single night, pounding the phones. And then I realized this after I read about the Pareto principle, but 80% of your revenue is going to come from 20% of your leads. It's going to, no matter what kind of leads you get, no matter if they're probate, pre-foreclosure, no matter if they're vacant, not vacant, in your state, not in your state, if you get 100 leads, 80% of the revenue is going to come from 20 of those. And so this is how most people think about their customers and their leads. And this is how I used to think about it too. So if you get 30 leads, everyone thinks they're all kind of equal, and then they're spending equal time on them. So if you're spending, 20 minutes on the phone with 30 leads, well, you're just going to be talking a lot to a lot of people who are just tire kickers. And then I kind of discovered on that same plane that this is the truth about your customers. So if you got 30 customers up here at the top, there's really one of them that's worth 25% of all the profit in there. And there's 2 of them that are equal to the big one, and 4 of them equal to the big one, right? So there's a few customers in there who are worth a lot more than the rest of the customers. And it was hard for me to find this out. So really the big question for me was, how could you consistently find those 20% who are motivated to work with you? and your solution, not just motivated to sell, but work with you and what you bring to the table. So whether that's, you know, multifamily, or whether that's like $50,000 properties or $500,000 properties, no matter what you focus on, whatever your niche is, how do you find that 20% who bring the 80% of revenue? How do you find that 20% who are motivated to work with you? And so for this 20%, you should really be focusing your time, your talent, and your treasure on that 20%. But again, like, how do you find them? So how do you find that 1 in 5? That's what I'm going to dig into a little bit here. And this is something that I haven't heard anyone else talking about, quite frankly. You know, people talk about qualifying and disqualifying leads a lot. And they talk about, you know, some lines that you can say and questions that you can ask. But really the biggest question for me, and the biggest topic that I like speaking about, is how you can find this top 20%, like in a very quick manner. How can you qualify and disqualify people at the very beginning of that relationship, so you don't waste a bunch of time, you know, with tire kickers. So I'm going to show you guys the simple 3-step framework that we use in our office that we really like. Every morning we have a daily huddle, and we're talking about this 3-step framework. We're talking about, you know, the conversions and everything through it. And so I'm going to show you guys the 5-minute qualifying conversation that I have that really helps to sniff out motivation. And again, my goal is to make this super tactical for you. So, you know, a lot of people kind of ask, like, why are you like going to show this to other people in your market? Aren't you afraid they're going to rip you off? And the truth is, no. I mean, I have probably like 10 people here in my market right now on this call. And the truth is, no, I'm not afraid that you're going to rip it off. I hope you rip it off. I hope you take the same exact questions, bend them to your voice. And I hope that you guys can like actually make this something useful in your own business. That would actually like mean the most to me if you could do that, right? If you could take something that I've come up with, and then we could even mastermind around it and make it even better. So, all right. So here's one important thing that I think a lot of people skip over. Define your sales funnel. Rather than just say leads and then, you know, offers, or leads and then deals, what actually comes in between a lead and a deal? What is a lead to you in your business? When you start to scale your team, when you start to have team members, you have to know when someone else says lead, you have to know that it's the same thing as when you say lead, right? So if you're saying a lead is something and then someone else has a different idea of a lead, you're not going to be talking apples to apples. So in our business, a lead is simply someone who says yes to a cash offer, or someone that says, yes, I'm interested in selling. That's it. When you press someone for timeline, the timeline that we're looking for is 6 months or less. So they have to have some urgency. It's not like 2 or 3 years. But someone who says, yes, they want a cash offer, or someone who says, yes, they're interested in selling, we consider that a lead. Underneath a lead is an opportunity. And this is really the meat and potatoes of where we're going to be digging into today. An opportunity for us, it comes after this qualifying conversation. This is someone who has an elevated level of motivation. So some of you guys might call that a warm lead or a hot lead in your business. We just say they have an elevated level of motivation and they fit into our buy box, right? So our buy box, we have like 4 different products that we're looking to buy. And so if someone is, they have an elevated level of motivation and they fit into our buy box, it's an opportunity. And this is where the 1 in 5 or the 2 in 10 really comes into play. So these are the people that we're looking for right here, the opportunities. So all the opportunities, we're trying to make an offer on every single one. Obviously, we can't make an offer on everyone. And then deals, and then, you know, dollar signs at the bottom. So this is our sales funnel. I think it's super important for all of you guys to define this in your business. What's a lead in your business? What's an opportunity in your business? And then how do you make an offer and how do you close a deal in your business? So it's important to individualize this. Oops, let me go back. Okay, so again, the big question is, how can you consistently identify the 20% who are motivated to work with you? And so I think the key is to visualize it differently. So the 20%, the 1 in 5, the 2 in 10 are these opportunities. So this is where we're going to dig in here. So the key is really visualizing the 20% differently. And so this is how most people think of leads, again, right? Like everyone's equal right here. One lead is equal to the next, the next, the next, the next, right? And if you look at this and plot it out, what someone is showing you is, if you're looking at them this way, is a bell curve. A bell curve is meant to show you the average right here. But if you're looking to close more deals for bigger profit, you're not looking for the average lead. Because quite frankly, if you get 100 leads, the average lead sucks. The average lead is a tire kicker, right? So you're not looking for the average lead. You're looking to visualize in a different way. So this is how I started to think about it right here. And this is the 80-20 power curve. This is the 80-20 distribution right here. And so this line actually never touches the axis. It goes up towards infinity. And this right here is the 20% of leads, but it makes up 80% of the overall revenue. It makes up 80% of the overall value. And this graph right here is super important too, because this shows these leads that we're going after. And then this other 80% right here is the ones that we're going to put up on follow-up automation and touch base with them maybe once a week, once a month. But we're not going to be pounding the phones, trying to chase them down, trying to squeeze a deal out of them if they're not ready to. So we're really going to take our time, talent, and treasure and focus it here on this 20% right here that's going to deliver the 80% of value. All right, so I'm diving in really quick now to the 3-part framework. This is important. I'm going to go through it quickly, and then I'm going to dive back in depth. So if you feel like you're drinking from a fire hose, let me know in the comments below. I'll try to slow down a little bit, but I got a lot to get through in the next like 20 minutes. So the first step in the 3-part framework is prospecting. This is lead generation. You guys are all familiar with this. This is texting, cold calling, SEO, pay-per-click, whatever it may be. Whatever your lead generation channels are, this is the first step in the 3-part framework. So you're taking a list of prospects. You get that from ListSource, PropStream, Propelio, County, wherever you may get these prospects, these lists, and you're dropping it into either your cold caller, your texting software, whatever it may be, right? So you're putting in prospects into the top and it's spitting out leads if you're doing your job right, right? And so basically all we're trying to find out, do they want a cash offer or do they want to sell within 6 months, right? And so basically our angle here is, hey, my name's Josh. I'm calling because I'm an investor in the neighborhood and I want to see if you might want a cash offer on your property. That's basically it. If they say yes, it's a lead. The really important big step here is that the lead, the prospect needs to get to know you. You have to identify yourself. You have to say why you're calling and you have to say why you'd like to talk to them. That's the most important thing here. The second step in the 3-part framework is qualification. So you're qualifying these leads. And this is the part that I'm going to really dive deep into. And so into this phase, you're taking leads and you're qualifying them into opportunities, right? And so with this conversation, this is the 5-minute conversation I alluded to before. I'm going to dive deep, and this is called the 4 pillars of motivation in our business. And so in this phase right here, super important that the person starts to like you, right? If they don't like you, you're not going to move on to the next phase. Just like when you're prospecting, if they don't know you, you're not going to move on to the next phase either. So it's super important in the first phase, they know you. In the second phase here with qualification, that they like you. And then on the third step here is the offer, of course. So when you're finding out your opportunities through this qualifying conversation, that 1 in 5, that 2 in 10, you're going to do as much as you can to get them towards the offer stage here. So you're taking opportunities and you're making them an offer. And so there's a few steps, and I'm going to dive a little bit deeper into these. Anybody got any quick questions? Just a cash offer of discounted cash offer or discounted cash offer? Sam, I'm not quite following. Drop a clarification in there and I'll answer it. So again, go back to the sales funnel really quickly here. So the 3 steps, prospecting, qualifying, and offering. This relates to the sales funnel right here, which is why I define that up front. So going from lead to opportunity, or going from prospect to lead, you're prospecting. Going from lead to opportunity, you're qualifying. And then going from opportunity to offer, you're offering, of course. And so I'm showing you guys this so you can get it down to a process. You really want to start to build this into like a conveyor belt, right? So you can put some of these steps on automation. You can put some people in charge of each step. So for instance, in our business, our VAs are in charge of prospecting, right? They run all of our prospecting. They run all of our cold calling, our texting, all of the lead generation. They are finding among our prospects. But they're prospecting, and then they drop leads to us in the office here. And then it's up to myself and my inside sales guys to do the qualifying and have this conversation, and then it's up to them also to do the offering. Garrett, finding 1 hot lead in 165 prospects. Like 33 times 5, whatever that is. So basically, yeah. So if we drop a list of, I put the numbers here. So if we pull a list of 100 prospects, right, we're typically finding about 3 leads, at least our first time through. We're finding if we cold call 100 prospects, we're getting about 3 leads out of that. If we text 100 people, we're finding about 3 leads out of that. And then on this stage, no matter what channel it is, if we're taking 5 leads, we're finding about 1 opportunity. So Jimmy Ogle, what's happening, brother? All right, guys, so I went through the sales funnel really quick, and let me hop back to this. This is super important. So I use some principles here, and this is not something that you hear a lot of other people talk about either. But I have a few principles that are super, super, super important for all of this to flow. Number one, order of operations is crucial. If you go out of order, everything's going to fall apart. And what do I mean by that? If they don't know you, then it's going to be hard to qualify them. If they don't like you, it's going to be hard to offer on them. And then if they don't trust you, it's going to be hard for them to accept your offer, no matter what. If you don't have a lead, it's going to be hard to qualify them. If you don't have an opportunity, it's going to be hard to offer on them. So this is what I'm talking about in terms of order of operations. You need to make sure that everything flows here in order of operations for the rest of this to work. The second thing is, I call this follow the leader. So if you're on the phone and you're running through whatever conversation, whether it's your prospecting conversation or whether it's your qualifying conversation, you want to be the leader and you want to make your customer, your lead, follow you. So there's going to be a leader no matter what. Someone's going to take the alpha position, someone's going to take the beta position. If you do not take the alpha position, if you do not become the leader, then your client becomes the leader and you're following them. Suddenly they're talking about the cabinets in the house that their grandfather built in 1942 and how they have the nicest corner lot in the whole neighborhood, and you've been on the phone for 25 minutes without really finding what kind of motivation they have. And then the third thing is checkpoints at each stage to qualify or disqualify and to move on. So what I mean by that is, if you're not finding out that the person is a lead, that acts as a checkpoint, right? You're saying, do you want a cash offer? Are you interested in selling? That's a checkpoint. If they say yes, they're moving on to the next stage. If they say no, well, guess what? You're disqualifying them and not calling them anymore, right? Okay, so onward. I'm going to go back and dive a little bit deeper into each stage of this real quick. How many leads per week for each acquisition guy or girl? So that's a good question. We're typically getting, I mean, I don't measure it that way particularly. I just try to get as many leads as we can and then scale up my acquisition department. So, and I'm scaling up in terms of marketing channels as well. So I don't try to like reverse engineer it that way. When qualifying someone as potential lead, is someone who wants to just cash offer when you get a discounted cash offer? I mean, I don't ask that, Sam, but when we go into this conversation right here, I'll always say something like, you know, as an investor, I have to be able to add a little bit of value. I definitely can't pay as much as a retail buyer would if you were to list this with a realtor. So I say something like that. So most of the people that we talk to are definitely not expecting a retail price, and we want to let them know that. It's important. Okay, so diving back into the first step really quick in prospecting, also known as lead generation. This includes any number of channels, and like I said before, it's mainly VA driven. And so really the goal is, are they interested in selling in the next 6 months? Are they interested in selling within the next 6 months? Or are they interested in a cash offer, right? That's really all we're trying to know. And just like I said before, you want the goal to be for them to know you. They have to know a little bit about your company. They have to know a little bit about you, because chances are they don't know my name before I call. They don't know my company before I call. So you have to identify that a little bit. Okay, so this is really where we're going to dive deep. This is going to be the bulk of the discussion here, guys, and I only got like 10, 15 minutes left. But this is this step right here, the qualification, diving into the 4 pillars of motivation right here is how you find the top 20% of leads. This is how you find your opportunities. This is how you find the people to offer on. We're going to go through the 4 pillars of motivation. These are the 4 things that you need to know if you want to make an intelligent offer, if you want to be able to make an offer over the phone. Really, if you want to make any offer, you have to know these things. But these are the most important things that I need to know. Once I know these 4 things, I can make an offer on any property as long as I can pull comps. So the first one is timeline. This is also the most important. The second is why. You want to know the reason for selling. The third is the condition. And the fourth, you want to know what they think is a fair offer or how much they still owe on the property. Both, if possible. And most of the time we get both. All right, so timeline is most important. Why? I actually heard this from Tom Kroll from Wholesaling Inc. a while back. And this actually, their timeline, the seller doesn't even know this. But this line is so important, and I asked this first, because the seller's timeline is directly correlated with their motivation. The timeline that they tell you to sell is directly correlated with their motivation. So you're not going to ask the seller, how motivated are you? But you're going to go in and say, Mr. Seller, if we could line up on the dollar signs and all the other important details, what kind of timeline is even ideal for you to finalize the sale? And you're basically going to get 2 buckets of answers. That's all you're going to get. You're going to get people that say today, tomorrow, this week, next week, yesterday, as soon as possible, about 20%. But the other people are going to say, I don't have a timeline. Whenever I get my price, no timeline. You called me, the rest of the bullshit excuses that you might hear, the rest of the bullshit reasons. But basically, if someone has a timeline and it's within the next 2 months, you can read that as pretty high motivation. So if someone has timeline and they come back and they say today, tomorrow, yesterday, ASAP, the bells in your head should go off. And again, I ask this question first after I warm up the rapport a little bit. The second question I ask is always in Baltimore. So we go by blocks or communities or neighborhoods in Baltimore. But I always say, it seems like a really nice block. Why the heck are you thinking about selling now? And again, 2 buckets of answers here. If someone does not have a reason, if someone says, I don't know, you called me, or someone says, no real reason, I just, wanted to see, they don't have a reason, low motivation. But then again, if you hear, my grandkids just moved, I want to move and go see them in Florida. I'm just really tired of being a landlord. The last tenant really pissed me off. I owe a bunch of money now. I'm losing money. I can't stand this. I can't stand that neighborhood. I never want to be a landlord again. Do you think that their motivation is high? Do you think that they have a real reason? Of course. So the real key here for me is I can pretty much tell in these first 2 questions if someone has a decent amount of motivation or not. So just going back, I asked the timeline, and then I want to know the reason right after. Most of the time, these 2 will coincide with each other. So if someone says as soon as possible, and then their why matches that, the bells in my head are really going off, and I'm diving deep into the next questions. On the converse, if someone says, no timeline, nah, I don't know, just kind of wanted to hear a reason, or just kind of wanted to hear an offer on it, you know that this person is not motivated and you want to get off the phone in 2 or 3 minutes, put them on autopilot with your follow-up. All right, so the third question I ask is always about condition. And my question is just simply this: Mr. Seller, if you could rate the property 0 to 10, where 0 is terrible, but 10 is like a magazine, what do you think you would rate it? They'll come back and they'll tell you most of the time, I don't know, 5, 6, 7. And that also coincides with the criteria that I want to hear. If they tell you a 10 out of 10, do you think they're going to accept your discounted cash offer? No chance. Most of the time, no. So you want to hear something from 0 to like 7, right? So sometimes you can get a better property at a cheaper price, but most of the time, the properties that we're getting at a big discount are in bad shape. They need some sort of work. And then the last questions that I ask are about the dollar signs. I always ask this about, try to get their line in the sand about price. It's just, Mr. Seller, do you have an idea of what you think a fair price might be? Or do you have any understanding of what the neighbors are selling for? And most of the time people are straight up with you. They say, yeah, I got a fair price. I got an idea on price, but I want to hear yours first. No, I don't have an idea of what the neighbors are selling for, right? So they'll at least tell you. And this is where you can start to tug at the price a little bit. Those are the 4 basic questions that I ask in this 5-minute conversation that I have to qualify people. These are the 4 most important questions that you can ask in qualifying someone and really gauging their motivation. Most of the time, my guys can do this in 5 minutes or less. People will try to take you off the tracks a little bit. They'll try to take you sideways and give you really long explanations or talk about some other stuff. But you try to reel them back in and find out in 5 minutes or less if they're motivated or not. Make sense, guys? Give me a thumbs up if it makes sense. Cool. All right. Garrett, what about I want to move elsewhere? Can you elaborate on the 2 to 3 minute remainder of the conversation with unmotivated sellers? So most of the time, like 80% of the people that we speak to are absentee owners. Like a very slim margin are people that are actually living in that house. And that's just a product of our targeting, a product of the prospect list that we pull. And so from my perspective, it's just a lot harder to wholesale a house where someone's actively living in there, right? I'm talking to a few people now that, I might be able to make it work, but generally it's a lot harder of a climb. Vacant houses are the easiest. And then if you have tenants, we can make that work. But owner occupied houses are generally the hardest. The rest of the 2 to 3 minutes, I'll go through that same conversation and always record the answers to these 4 questions. And, you'll start to fit the pieces together and think, if they told me they got no timeline, they got no why, but then they said, the property's in terrible shape and they got a low price. you might think they have some motivation, but it's really up to you to put those 4 answers together and to figure out how much motivation you think they have. For me, if they tell me they got no timeline and they got no reason why, I'm just breezing through the rest of those questions real quick, and I'll even flat out ask them, it sounds like you don't even want to sell. Did we just happen to call at the right time? And, get an answer out of them then. If they fail questions 1 to 3 to even get into price, yeah, I'll always ask people the 4 pillars. I'll always ask them that. I want to hear the answers. I'm interested to see how they fit together. All right, so the top 20%, as I alluded to before, the top 20% of leads that I'm trying to make offers on are your opportunities, your 1 and 5 and your 2 and 10, right? And so we take the combined answers from these 4 questions to try to determine their motivation. After you've done this enough, it becomes crystal clear. It's not even an equation anymore. You get off that 5-minute conversation and you think, yes, they had big motivation, they had a little bit of motivation, or they had no motivation. And so you start to determine your outcomes there. But here's the thing that is a good combination for me right here in the middle. So for question 1, ASAP, they have a big why, like I want to move my grandkids, I got to go to Florida, I'm retiring, whatever it is. Most of the time they rate it 0 to 6 out of 10. And then most of the time they have a price in mind and they say they're flexible, right? So that's what like the winning equation to me looks like in terms of the answers for these 4 questions. And like I said before, everything else goes on that follow-up automation. The 80% that don't have motivation to sell today go on follow-up automation. Most people are not going to sell to you in the first conversation or the first day. Most of your sales are going to come from that follow-up, most of them. So it's super important to still follow up with these people, even though you don't think that they're like hyper-motivated today. All right. And so the last part here that I'm going to dive into a little bit is the offer. And so offering can be really, really tricky. I think it's a personality thing. I think it's, how you feel comfortable making an offer and how well you're vibing, how well you've built rapport with this seller. And so I can talk a little bit about the offer, but really the meat and potatoes that I want to talk about is the qualifying to get to this offer point, right? And so the order of operations is absolutely crucial to get to this step. If you have not qualified the person, you shouldn't be offering on them yet. You should be diving in and finding out their motivation a little bit more. Okay. So let me go to the next one. So this is super important about the offer. I told you guys before that they have to fit into our buy box. And just like the sales funnel, this is when I talk to other people, this is a step that most people have not actually drawn out for themselves. So you should go to your whiteboard, you should go to your notebook and draw out your buy box. And I physically made it look like a box, yes, but I put in the criteria that must work for us and for our deals. Now, for us, if one house, one property fits into one of these boxes, I know for a fact that I can sell it. There's no question. So this makes acquisitions on the front end a lot easier. If you have your buy box defined, if you know what price you have to get in at, then you know that you can sell it on the back end and you're not scrambling to try to blast it out to a bunch of people and you're not scrambling to find a JV partner and split the deal, right? You're going to cut your margins in half if you got to start JVing with everyone else because you don't have a buyer, you can't find a buyer. So for us, this is really simply it. Turnkey, multifamily, B class, which is a nicer neighborhood, and then C class. So turnkey in Baltimore City, we're $50K all in, rented or vacant, doesn't matter. The block just has to be good. Multifamily, we want to be under 60K a door, 1.5 rent multiple. So if we're buying it for, $50K a door, we ideally want it to be rented for at least $750 a door. If you're buying it for, $30 a door, you want it to be rented for at least $450, which is kind of unheard of. But C class is, 120 to 200K ARV, and then 66% of ARV minus repairs. The B class is a little bit nicer neighborhoods around here. So for us, Baltimore County, we're in at 70% minus repairs, 200 to 400,000 ARV, usually a flip, where C class could be a flip or a rental. So I have this drilled in, but the criteria is also simple, right? I only have like 3 lines for each one. And so basically when I'm underwriting a property, it either fits into one of these boxes or doesn't. It's not sitting on the line. There's no guessing. Like I can either get this turnkey for under 50 and sell it for 50, or I can't, right? So if it fits in the buy box, I know that I can sell it. And this is something that I can't overstate enough, because if you're wholesaling, this will make your acquisition so much easier. If you're training someone else, if you're unclear about what criteria you need, it will become so much more clear when you write down the criteria that you're actually looking for, like the actual criteria. All right. And then the last thing is when I'm offering, I'm not going to go into the script or anything like that right now, but when I'm offering, like I said, they must trust you or else there's no chance that your offer is going to stand. And then I always end before I offer, I always say, you know what, Mr. Seller, as an investor, I definitely don't buy every house I see. And I just want to let you know that I'd love to do a deal with you, but if we can't, no is perfectly fine. You're not going to hurt my feelings by saying no, right? So you just want to relieve sales pressure a little bit and let them know that. All right, deep breath. Almost out of time here for 30 minutes. We're actually over. All right, so KPIs, super important, because if you don't know your KPIs, you're not going to know your sales funnel. You want to, let me flip back here really quick. Okay, so right here, to go back to your sales funnel, again, this is something you should draw out. What is a lead? What's an opportunity for you guys in your own business? It's not going to be the same as mine, and that's good. It shouldn't be. We should draw out your sales funnel, and then measuring KPIs is going to let you know if you're on track or if you're off track when it comes to measuring. So this is something we actually do in our sales huddle every day. We're talking about how many leads did you get yesterday? How many connections did you get? How many opportunities? How many offers? Like, we're going over that and we're constantly reviewing these numbers, because then at the end of the week, if someone has, talked with, let's just say 100 people, but they've made 2 offers, I know something is up, right? They haven't been making enough offers. So drawing your sales funnel and then knowing and measuring your KPIs will let you know if you're on track with this whole process. Okay, so this is what I want to know out of my acquisitions, guys. How many leads, how many opportunities, how many offers, and how many contracts. And then internally, as the owner of the business, I'm measuring A to B contracts, projected profit, and then B to C contracts and sign profit. So those are the most important KPIs to me and my business that kind of wrap up everything that I just talked about. And then this is the last slide. I'll open up for any questions you guys may have. So keys to success for me. I just want, I think Kyle asked that before. The thing, I'm not trying to reverse engineer how many leads per acquisition rep or anything like that. I am just trying to bust open my pipeline with as many leads as I can, right? I'm sticking with the process, and I'm not really stretching to stuff bad leads in, but I'm trying to fill my pipeline with as many leads as absolutely possible. And then I'm focusing on the 20% and putting the other 80% on automated follow-up, and then just trying to consistently improve my process. So guys, that's basically all I got for you. That's the 3-part framework. It's super simple. Not sure if any of you guys work your leads in this way and qualify them down to opportunities, but it was absolutely just monumental for our business when we started having that qualifying conversation, setting those guys aside as opportunities and making sure we kept our eye on them, measuring them as opportunities in our CRM, and making sure they didn't slip off of our radar, because they're worth so much more than all of the other leads. So guys, that's basically all I got for you. If you have any sort of questions, I would love to hear them. I'm going backwards here. You can unmute yourself and ask a question or drop it in here. Rick, what's my fallout rate? Our fallout rate is less than 10% on contracts. We're closing over 90% of our contracts. And I think that came from really knowing the buy box, like I said at the end. I didn't do that until this year. And when I started doing that, I took my buyers list and I surveyed everyone. I said, what are you actually looking for? If you're looking to buy today, what kind of deal is it that you'll buy? And then sketching out my buy box, and then only getting deals that fit within that, not trying to stretch myself out. Any sub 2 or owner finance, dude, we're hopping into that big time right now. Haven't actually closed on any yet. I went to John Martinez and Mastermind last week, and that was one of my big takeaways that I was not asking at the end of the call. Sir, do you need all the money up front, or would you consider taking payments on a monthly basis and then we can cash you out in a year or 2? Super powerful question. So if you're looking for any owner finance deals, that's basically what we ask.
We're closing on our first one in Hagerstown next week. So it's been a game changer. We just have more exit strategies now. And thanks for putting this together, by the way.
Absolutely. Sub 2?
Yeah. So our buyer's going to cut us an assignment fee, take over the note, put 20 grand into it, and just flip it. So he didn't need to come in with hard money. It's like a 20K reno.
Oh, dude, that's amazing. Great job on that. Great job. We'd love to hear any info on your follow-up process or touch frequency. Terry, so I have, so basically inside of our Podio Here I can show you really, really quickly. Inside of our Podio, might look like a mess. But here, so any seller right here, right? Let me just pull up someone random, like a new lead from today. It's super important for us in our business to measure motivation, timeline to sell, deal value, that's something secondary. But then we go here, the status, so follow up, and then our next contact date, right? So we know that here. This is for manual. So everyone gets at least one manual call a month. But then on the automation side, down in beast mode, we use Podio beast mode. And so there's a section right here. This sets follow-up automation right here. And so basically our process is once you set this, if I set this to start today, this person is going to get 5 texts in the next 7 days, as well as 4 voicemails in the next 7 days. And these interchange. So they'll get a text and then they'll get a voicemail like a couple hours later. And then the next day they'll get a text and then they'll get a voicemail like 2 days later. And so it stacks it heavy on the first 7 days. And they're getting like 5 texts and 4 voicemails in the first 7 days. And then it drips out over the next 5 months. So then they're just getting 1 touch every like once a week for the next like 8 weeks after that. And so basically if they respond to any of those texts or voicemails, coming back inbound to our cell. So that's why I say it's fully automated. It's pretty awesome. What list are you focusing on? Garrett, here's the truth. Texting came about and it's so popular now that there's no untouchable lists. If we're on, like, there's 20 of us on the call right now, a bunch of us in the same market. I honestly don't think that there's a prospect that some of us have not overlapped on. Everyone's pulling vacants. Everyone is pulling high equity. Everyone's pulling out of state. Everyone's pulling probate. Everyone's pulling pre-foreclosure. Everyone's pulling divorce, bankruptcy, liens, like all these kinds of things. We're pulling all of those. But the truth is everyone else is dealing with a part of those too. Everyone else is mailing them. So there's no untouchable lead. And that's why this sales process is so important, because people are getting so much mail now. People are getting so many texts on their phone that if you don't stand out and differentiate yourself with your sales process, then you're just going to be lost in the shuffle. So I think that's why this process right here has been so important for us. Long story short. I think I covered them all. What do you do with realtor leads? That's a good one, Phil. So we work with, in Maryland, we work with like 3 different realtors. So 1 close, 1 in the middle of the state, and 1 out west. And they basically kick us 30% of all referrals. So we try to set up a lot of retail referrals and send them over, and they're kicking us about 30% commission back. We also do the same with a short sale attorney.
Real quick, Josh.
Go ahead.
Sorry. You were on your when you're in your box. You had the first one at 50K. Was that just a small single family? And then because you have multifamily in the top right, but then you had class B and C. Was that also multifamily, or were you just classifying higher end single family?
So right here for no, turnkey are basically all single family. I guess it could also fit in multifamily, but for us, like 50% of our deals are turnkey that we sell to international investors. And so they want to be all in for 50, including closing costs, including our fee and everything. So that's how that is. C class really here can be a flip or a rental, and B class is really like a flip, right? So we're dealing with different buyer populations right here, but it's important to know that and identify that. So even when you send out your deals, you can segment them to your list. You only want to send flips to people that flip, right? You don't want to inundate flippers with your buy and holds. They're just going to get annoyed and unsubscribe. So answer your question?
Okay, yes, I had heard B class, C class apartments, but you were just kind of assigning your own class to what you were doing there. I got it.
Yeah, so I mean, that's important for me to be able to slap a label on this. So when I'm talking with my team, we're not just like, oh, you know, that one that was like kind of between 180 and 400 or whatever. You can actually say like, look, no, that B class, like that B class property right there, that's what so-and-so wanted. You're talking apples to apples. And I think that's super important.
Right. And I know you're super busy. If you have any chance to post any of these that you haven't, like 2 or 3 aren't on YouTube. Sorry, just whenever you get a second. You've been the busiest person in the world last month, I know.
Yeah, these all go up on YouTube, dude. If you guys want to see all the any of the episodes, they're all on YouTube.
There's still a couple missing.
There are a couple
Like,
missing?
yeah, like 3 or so out of the last month and a half or so.
Okay. I'll try to get them up as fast as I can, or my VA will. I'll try to get them
Thank
up there. If you guys have any other questions, I'd love to answer them. If not, I'm going to pound the phones, man.
I have a quick question.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Hi. I'm wondering, so when you were calling yourself before you got a VA, how did you transition from the initial, like when you're switching hats from like cold caller to acquisitions person, how would you say, because I think I'm like selling too much in my initial cold call. I think I'm just saying too much. I'm just blabbing. And I think I need, I don't know, like a way to transition. So do you just end it with, hey, that's great. I'd like to get you an offer, like, and then call them back?
Yeah. So, I mean, on yours, if you are cold calling, right, if you're the one prospecting and pulling in the leads, you just basically want to find out if they're interested in selling. If they're interested in selling, I would just dive right into that 4 pillars conversation right away.
Okay.
Us, it's super important if you guys have VAs running this process for you. You only want your VA having like a 3, maybe 4-minute conversation. You want to ask if they're interested in an offer, why they would possibly think about selling, do they have an idea of the price range? And then you'll just say, okay, identify your company a little bit and say, okay, so-and-so will be calling you back. You do not want to bleed them dry with all information, because what we found is that next conversation goes very rough. They're like, didn't you talk with so-and-so? I told him all of this. And so we're purposely keeping it really short now so that we have the opportunity to build that rapport and we're not trying to repeat what happened before.
Okay. So even if like, let's say you didn't have a VA, you would still do it that way yourself? You would be like, hey, are you interested in selling? Get the yes or no, and then have a conversation later on with qualifying?
No, if you find a lead right then, I would just say, have you thought about selling? Yeah, I actually have thought about selling. Oh, wow. Okay, great. And I would hop right into 4 pillars.
Okay.
So I'd say, oh, wow. Okay. You thought about selling, if we could line up on the dollar signs and the other important details, what kind of timeline would be ideal for you to sell? And just hop right into it like that.
Okay. Awesome. Thank
That's
you.
how I would do it. Yeah, absolutely. Anybody else got any questions? What's up, Mr. Kevin Davis? How you doing, buddy?
Awesome, man. How you doing?
I'm doing great, dude. Thanks for being here. You hopped in a little late, but we got the recording for you.
Yeah, had to get some meetings. I'll definitely catch the recording. I wanted to check you out.
Cool. I appreciate it, man. Phil, what do you do when the motivation is high, timeline is tomorrow, and prices are unrealistic? That's like a whole different thing, but basically if their price is unrealistic, they're not really motivated. So that's why I have that as like the 3rd or 4th question. You don't want to disqualify someone based on the price, as like, you don't want to ask price up front and then say, nope, see you later. You got to dig into the why a little bit. Everyone's why is super important, more important than their price. If they put up some sort of, high price, or if they're like, they have some sort of defensive mechanism, that's basically all it is. They're trying to tell you F off, salesman, like, they're backing down essentially. It's a psychological thing because they don't know what a good deal is. They don't want to get screwed out of a good deal, right? So I think this is important. Going through this sales process really peels back the layers of the onion and helps you build rapport, right? So if you can build rapport with that person, if you can unlock their why, if you can show them that you can solve their problem, they're going to be a lot more willing to work with you. And so I think, again, that's why the sales process that we run through, it works really well for us. Timeline is tomorrow, give them a low cash offer and put them in follow-up in the next 6 months. No, I don't really give them like a low cash offer. All of our offers are basically in ranges. So I start out when I offer, I'm giving like a big range. So I'll be like, from looking at the MLS, it looks like I'd be in the, 90 to 140 range, or even in the same ballpark. And then you start to narrow it down. But if you give them like a really low offer, you're dead to them. They're going to cast you aside and they're going to say, see you later. And the next time you call, they're not going to pick up. So no, if they have some real motivation, you can give them a range, but I definitely wouldn't just give them a low offer for the sake of giving them an offer. Cool. Anybody else? Well, hey, without further ado, I appreciate you guys being here. Thanks for showing up to the Lead Gen Underground. If you got value out of this, I would love it if you left a comment somewhere on the page, or invited a friend in. And we got some huge guests coming in the next few weeks. So I'm excited to tell you guys who they are. Hope you guys have a great day, man. Talk to you guys again.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
Later, guys. Bye-bye.